with Saraya revealing an interesting pitch she made to WWE and more. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report for October 15th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. During his interview on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani, Shawn Michaels spoke about the goals he had for NXT as he made an interesting claim, saying, "Right now, it certainly is about development, but that is certainly not for the standpoint of forsaking real talent and real ability. You're crazy if you don't see people who are out there that are very valuable, that you know can be valuable to WWE. Even if it's coming into NXT and maybe getting a feel for how life is in WWE and then quickly moving on. I know it sounds cliche and maybe not honest, but nothing really is off the table. If it's a good idea, I'll steal it from anybody. There's a really talented guy out there and we think he can help this company, we're crazy not to take it. We can still develop people at the same time. All of our younger talent is going to benefit from being in the ring with those guys, even if it's just a handful of times. They're going to get such experience from that. I never want to take it off the table. Not getting guys out there that can really contribute to Raw or SmackDown in the future. All of this is about feeding the machine. At the forefront, I'm more focused on developing the young men and women that we have passed through here, getting them prepared for the main roster. In the process, if we're able to build back this brand, or we can get back in those arenas and start selling them out, that's a bonus. I can't say that's the goal right now. To me, I'm focused on the development of these young men and women. The more people we get that have experience and we can filter through our system, it's only going to help. Talking about the possibility of having an angle with her husband, Jon Moxley, in AEW, Renee Paquette said on her podcast, "We've never spoken about it, to be completely honest. It's not something we've spoken about, but the way that I look at it and feel about it, at the risk of sounding super cheesy, he has built something so special and so authentic and great with what he does. He is in such a great groove. He's the best." What he's been able to do within his time in AEW, the stuff he does on the indies, the stuff he decides to do, he's in this pocket. And I never want to do anything to distract from that or get my own in there with what he's doing. I don't want to be that person who is like, "Me too, don't forget about me, that's my husband." I think that's obnoxious as hell. If there was a thing, of course, I'm not going to pretend that I'm not married to the guy or act like I don't know him. That's dumb. In terms of positioning myself or making an awareness, that's my husband, there's Jon Moxley's wife. I don't think anyone needs that. Jon has such a lone wolf vibe about him. To be like the cheery, happy girl is his wife, it's a weird juxtaposition that I don't know that works on camera. We've been able to coexist in the wrestling world because how annoying would it be, say, we were doing a segment together and I messed something up or I missed my cue, anything like that. Then you have to talk about it. Us having our own separate roles, we never step on each other's toes. We both have an immense amount of respect for what the other does. Those things don't need to intertwine. It's wrestling. If there is ever a moment that it does make sense and something like that does happen, cool. I'm not saying I'm against it. I just don't think it's something that ever needs to be forced or harped on. Speaking about working under Triple H, Baron Corbin told the Johnny Dare morning show, he's the guy who, when I came into NXT, he was the guy who really grabbed onto me and helped develop me and create who I was. My first entrance. He brought that whole motorcycle vibe, that drudgy rock music where I walked in and I had spotlights over my head. That was all his vision. It's cool to have him back because he has now kind of taken what I've been doing and going, how do we put more edge back on you? How do we make you a little more badass again? That feels good to have that. When asked about his one and only match against John Cena for his debut on Raw, Sami Zayn said to WWE Deutschland, "I kinda don't even know what I feel about it, to be honest. I mean, I think back on it, because it was the only time I ever wrestled John Cena one-on-one. So that was a privilege, especially now that Cena is not with us as often anymore, if at all. So the fact that I got to mix it up with him and have that match, which actually was a very good match, and the crowd was just amazing. That was, of course, very, very special." Touching on how AEW President Tony Khan could have better handled the backstage situations in his company, Eric Bischoff noted on his 83 Weeks podcast, "Tony has really dug himself in as the end-all, be-all, and he's the CEO. He's the head of creative, whatever 6 titles he has. I don't think he's delegated well. I think it would have served Tony much better very early on to set the stage and to create the culture, which is, I think, necessary. I think if Tony would have not only surrounded himself, but delegated and trusted more of the more senior people around him early on, I think it would have quite possibly avoided a lot of this trauma, because it is culture related, and the impression I get is that it's just kind of a frat house backstage." Speaking about the possibility of returning to WWE, former Wyatt family member Erick Rowan told NBC Sports Boston, "There's always opportunity, and my story within wrestling and that character of Erick Rowan or Eric Redbeard, it has so much left to tell. I think when I stepped aside when COVID happened and people were let go, I wasn't ready for my story to stop on that note. But it's been a couple of years. I've stepped my toes into other avenues of entertainment, which I fell in love with. But wrestling has always given me, I don't know, I've been lucky enough where I've been able to do some bigger arena shows with AEW and get that taste of the crowd. But I haven't had a story. I haven't told a story of what's happened to me since I've stepped away from wrestling. To me, I'd love to tell that story on some sort of stage because I think it could be very interesting to see what's happened to me. I love the continuality within wrestling. The last time anybody saw me, I had a pet spider that died. So I'd like to talk about my years of recluse, wandering the earth, finding reason and purpose for life without my precious spider." On the Superstar crossover, WWE Hall of Famer Road Dogg talked about the products of WWE and AEW and compared pay-per-views, saying, "We just booked a mixed card where both brands are like a super card. Every match had a great talent. I thought, man, what a freaking show." On top of that stack is the Bloodline and Sami Zayn. Sami and Roman in some of those backstage were priceless. And I mean, award-winning nomination. And I just think there's some magic there. And it's commonplace for me to say, well, this company's the best and the other company's not. But their television show is not fluid. Things don't connect. And when I watch now, I will admit 3 hours on Raw used to be a challenge, but for the last 3 months, it's been a joy to watch and a breeze to get through. Revealing a pitch she had for herself in WWE, Saraya mentioned how she wanted to manage Ronda Rousey, telling Talk Is Jericho, "Awful. The only thing is, I was in a better mindset because if it was a couple years before, I would have spiraled 100%. But at that point, I was just like, you know what? I can't hit rock bottom again. I can only continue and try and do other things. But then, I got to be GM, and I loved it. But then that kind of got cut short as well, and I never really understood why. Because it was a great gig. I feel like everyone liked it. I never got anything negative from it. It was just shocking. Road Dogg called me the day before I was supposed to fly out. Road Dogg is so sweet. He's always trying to baby me. He was just like, so we're probably not going to do the GM anymore. So you won't have to come to work tomorrow. And then he decided that I was going to come and do a goodbye speech of GM, which I thought was really sweet too. So I ended up flying in and doing that first segment of the show and then flying back. Then I was sitting on my ass for years. I remember contacting them, Mark Carrano, just everybody, even WWE Studios. I contacted them and was like, if you want me to do media, I can do that. If you want me to do this, I can do that. If you want me to do managerial work, I think Ronda Rousey needed a mouthpiece at the time. I was pitching to work on doing that. I was constantly pitching all these different ideas and just being a manager in general because, I was doing managerial stuff for a bunch of women. I was like, I can do these things. I'm available. Just let me know. But I ended up sitting in my house for like 3 or 4 years. That's the the most depressing thing because you just feel like you're completely useless. Then you can't go and do anything else because you're under a contract, or even though you're an independent contractor, you still have to get permission to do stuff, and then it would get turned down. It used to really just get to me a lot. I never used to be vocal about it until they tried to take my Twitch away. I was just like, there's absolutely no way you're going to take my Twitch away from me. I remember Vince's assistant called me at the time. He only did one phone call. I was just like, well, you need to give us a percentage of this. If I spoke to Vince, he would have been way more chill about it, I believe. But his assistant just had a stick up his ass. Saraya would also note how she nearly lost a film project due to addiction. It was going to be stopped at one point because of me doing drugs and just being an absolute chaotic psychopath. It was not good press at all, and I was just like completely crazy. So at one point, they were scared that I was going to die, first of all, but also they were just like, this movie is just bad timing because she's not getting any better. I think it was Karana that reached out to me, and he was just like, you need to get it together. He was like, there's going to be a lot of things that are just going to be thrown away. And talking about how her neck is feeling after apparently being cleared to compete in AEW, she said, it's good. I feel really healthy and my neck feels fantastic. I just want to take care of my body because as much as I want to rush into doing all of these different types of matches, I know what happened last time. And then after a while too, it was all mental for me as well. Like, well, now I'm scared. What do I do? So getting over that hump, and I still have that mental block a little bit, but I feel like if I'm in the ring with the right person, then I'm going to be way more capable. In some unfortunate news, New Japan star Kitamura has passed away at the young age of 36. According to Tokyo Sport, he felt an abnormality in his physical condition on the same day and called an ambulance himself to the hospital. After that, his condition changed suddenly. With the cause of death not confirmed at this time, we wish his family and friends all the best. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and